Welcome to Catalyzing Innovation's podcast series, where exceptional global innovators across sectors share best practices to maximize creativity and practical secrets for good implementation. Okay, hi everybody. I'm really delighted to be speaking with Michael Ghory today. People who know Michael affectionately think of him as the shoe guy. He's an encyclopedia on the history, business, and culture of footwear, having dedicated his entire life to the study of all things shoes. He's been a self-professed sneakerhead since childhood, and he's now an industry leader. And within that, Michael specializes in consumer experience innovation. He's director of global merchandising for unisex and men's footwear at Converse, which is part of Nike. He's passionate about footwear and dedicated to building brands through consumer connections. And he's an expert in global shoe brand turnarounds and category launches. Prior to Converse, he was fashion channel director of North America for Adidas. He's also held roles at Coach, Hermes, Nike, Cole Haan, and Reebok. I first met Michael when he was an MBA student at Columbia Business School, and I'm very happy to say we stayed in touch, and it's been really fascinating to watch his career flourish. So Michael's speaking today, just for everybody to know, as an industry expert and not as a representative of his current employer, Converse. So all the views that he's sharing are going to be his own, not the company's. So Michael, can you share a little bit about your background and how you became so interested in and obsessed and knowledgeable about the shoe industry?
Absolutely. And thank you for having me on here. It's actually truly an honor anytime I get to speak with you and learn from you as well. Ever since I can remember, I've been obsessed with shoes. I've been researching and collecting them since I could first tie them. It was always my hobby, my passion, my identity. And with two older brothers, I received hand-me-down shoes. So I really learned to appreciate it when I got a new pair. And I even rushed into the workforce at a very young age to be able to buy my own shoes. And I was completely into it. I was moderating sneaker blogs. I was waiting in lines for shoes before eBay even existed to help date me a little bit. And as fate would have it, my first ever undergrad internship was in a shoe company, where I was actually given the chance to head up digital as an intern because I was told no one would ever buy shoes online. And it was there that I had this aha moment that I could turn this passion into a profession. And the CEO of the company, Tom Florsheim Jr., gave me this amazing advice. And he said, if you want to lead within the footwear industry, learn as much about the business and the consumer as you can. Understand all the functions, and how each gear in that machine turns so that you can speak intelligently to any room you walk into and get them behind your vision. And from there, I really just put my blinders on and dedicated my life and career to this industry. So every job, every internship has been about shoes. I like to say when I'm not thinking about shoes, I'm thinking about shoes. And it's been an amazing time. And since my MBA and with you at Columbia Business School, I had a succession of dream jobs. So when I went to Coach, I wore a number of functional hats and got to work with fellow footwear vets like Claudia Drabasi, Javen Bunch, and Laura Santisi to help guide buying back the footwear license for Coach, away from those sequin soccer mom shoes that you might have seen before, bring the business in-house, launch a runway collection. It was an amazing time. And then I got another dream job opportunity following where Shane Jochum created a new role for me at Adidas as their fashion channel director of North America, as you touched on, where I got to oversee marketing, merchandising, and visual merchandising. And this was just focused on the boutiques and streets, how to drive hype, how to drive energy to create an overall halo for the brand. And it's where I got to learn from the masters like Mario Tenaglia and Joe Robertson on the science of how to make shoes sell out in minutes, from Yeezy to Kith to Stan Smith. There was so much education there. And now I'm at Nike and Converse and getting to work on these 3-year strategies, bringing in things like sustainability and comfort innovations and working on skate with Russ Pope, or just the reintroduction of basketball. I smile uncontrollably every single day I get to work in this. But it's been amazing because I've gotten to really follow the sneaker consumer, both being one and studying them almost like an anthropologist, and seeing that evolution and how brands have been able to evolve and innovate to reach them at every stage.
Great. So I've heard you speak a number of times because you've been a guest speaker in my programs and classes, and I'm constantly amazed at how much thought and complexity and detail goes into creating great shoe brands. So can you explain a little bit about what innovation means to you? A lot of people think of innovation only in terms of new products, services, and features, which are clearly very important. But there are other ways that brands innovate, such as marketing, execution, and rollout, and creating cultures around products. And I know you're quite an expert at creating cultures around products. So if you can just talk a little bit about why innovation is so important and what are some of the different forms that it takes in launching new shoe brands?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, you're an expert on innovation and seeing all these other industries. And for footwear, it's this amazing thing where, innovation is about being unexpected. It's about breaking from the parakeeting that's happening in your industry. So typically when people think about sneakers, they just think about those, as you hit on it, different technologies for innovation. So new materials, new constructions. And historically, I mean, like decades ago, that was the only fight. Who had the fastest, lightest, best performing product? But then comfort, stability became expected. It was table stakes. So innovation came next in the form, I'm going down the history books a little bit, it came in the form of marketing. Who could better reach the consumers? They forced companies to really think about their consumers beyond the physical activity in the shoes. What music did they listen to? Like Run DMC. Brands began to excite consumers with attitude, with style. But soon those media advertising, like magazine ads, TV spots, social posts, and sideline banners became the norm. So the next innovation that came was around consumer experiences. This is something that we talk about constantly. They were able to recognize something that I'd been living since I first learned to tie these shoes, which was this entire subculture of sneaker fans that had a deeper connection to the product and a much larger average annual spend. And this consumer was coming out of the shadows of the urban cities and early internet forums and into the average American household. There was these, sneaker riots that people were starting to report on. There was this secondary market that was fetching these jaw-dropping resale sales for these products. And that's where we are now. The shoe lineups, the parties, the sharing of unboxing videos, these are all now buttressed by brands themselves. They're not as much happening organically. We lean into it. Brands are celebrating it. And sneakers have stood the test of time in comparison to products like trading cards or print comic books, which also had subcultures and followers and limited editions. And the difference is when those industries were hot, their fandom, was feverish for this product. They acted greedily. The brands just started printing more and more of them out. They started doing just pseudo limited editions. They stocked the shelves, and there was little thought about the future that it could ever end. And it made the products themselves feel a lot less special. They were just kind of thinking transactional. Sneaker brands don't think transactional. There's some milk and eggs products that we're going to put out in always on expression, but we think about these products now in life cycles, in how are we going to plan for a shoe to be cool in 2 years? What are the steps we need to do now? How are we cleaning up the marketplace? How are we getting to know the consumer better and just delighting them on every turn so that it doesn't feel transactional when they're lining up and buying these things? It feels like a fun event. They feel the social currency coming back to them by having this product, and they're just diving into the world and the storytelling that comes with it. Storytelling is huge. And with these sneaker brands, morning, noon, and night, they're studying the consumer and they're caring about what their brand is going to mean in the future and really thinking long-term versus those immediate wins.
Awesome. Awesome. So there's been so much new technology in terms of product development and marketing. What are some of the ways that you're using new technologies to innovate in the industry?
Ooh, new tech. Wow, there's so much that we can talk about when it comes to new tech. I think there's the places to put new tech is around marketing and in product development. So product development is just how we're coming to market with these products. There's a lot of amazing things with 3D imaging and uploading like your entire material libraries with pricing so that you can create a shoe in a 3D environment. You can select the materials, a point and click, and you can instantly price it. You can make sure that the those cutting dies are going to be exact and send this entire project over to a factory to create. So there's way less back and forth. There's way less of that time, energy, and just cost that goes into shipping samples back and forth. And you can get so much better about that. We can also use that 3D technology now through VR showrooms. So how do we, instead of creating samples that go out to different accounts and sell, how can we put them into a digital environment? And this brings up a lot of that rich, mass, deep data work that we can start to mine into, because in VR showrooms, we can start to study eye movement. We can look at what details are people really honing in on, what certain attributes are catching their eye. We can mine all of that data, and it's a lot of it, to then pull back and figure out how we can improve both the veneerings and the designs of the shoes themselves. And then augmented reality can take it into the next step over for consumers, for them to try on the products themselves, for them to, you know, take their phone and look at it on their desk, but also to look at it on their foot and see how they like it. And then there's just a lot more tech and smarts coming into the online raffles space. So especially during the pandemic, fewer and fewer people are lining up for shoes or going to stores, but they are still buying them. They're still going, trying for the most, the latest drop, the limited edition. And there's a lot of bots. The resellers have a lot of technology to try to hack into the websites, to be the first ones, to have the product sell out in seconds and fill up their carts. And so a lot is being done on the counter of that, how to prevent the bots, how to create your own D2C and app experience where you can start to block these people out, but also creating these apps and D2C experiences, because again, not only do you control the world and the environment and what they're experiencing, you can also learn everything from their click-through rates and how they're interacting with your different content, to then take those you know, actionable insights and really start to execute them for future seasons.
Awesome. So interesting. So marketing research and social listening are so incredibly important. And there are a lot of ways now with online that you can hear from lots of people in lots of interesting different ways. So how have you seen marketing research and social listening evolve as inputs for product development and innovating in marketing? Can you just share like some of the tools, and you know, because you've been around, you're not that old, but you've kind of seen the evolution of product development and marketing in the category, and there are obviously a lot of changes. But what are some of the tools that you're finding are helpful to brands? Because you know, you market global brands, and how do you understand what culture is like and what product needs are like and trends are like all over the world?
Yeah, and there's kind of two steps to trends. It's, are you keeping up with trends, or are you leading trends and creating trends? When it comes to keeping up with trends, that's when you're moving at the speed of culture. And that's not just a buzz term, it's an imperative. And I mean, on a very basic level, you mentioned that I'm old. What I do every Monday is with the team, we try to talk about heat of the week. So what were the most amazing things, exciting things that we saw in greater culture, in the greater zeitgeist from the previous week? That could be sneaker drops, but that could also just be a new album that dropped, a new film, a new event. And to really keep up with trends, you have to immerse yourself in the cultures of the world. A lot of the people in the sneaker world are traveling the world on a yearly basis. And we might go to Korea to look at what's happening in the beauty industry, or get inspired by the Gentle Monster stores and their displays, and how that can translate over to our own practices in retail theater. We might go to a concert or hit up in a trade show like Intersect. At one point in my career, I was going to Tokyo 4 times a year just to browse, just to look at vintage toy malls or up and coming brands, taking pictures of the materials and techniques. And a lot of times when you see a trend happen, it could be because everyone's on WGSN or Style Site and just seeing the same trend reports, but it could also be that, you know, there's an element of strategic intuition. Everyone who is guiding these brands come from certain backgrounds and have studied cultural histories while also seeing these new things out there. They're seeing the new museum displays. They're seeing these new brands pop up. And so we're all seeing the same things at the same time. And we're all getting kind of sparked by the same ideas that then come later. Creating trends is a much different way. That's where it requires all this freshness. It requires studying the consumer. And back in the day, that just used to literally mean taking a bag of shoes down to a court and showing them to kids. And famously, Reebok's DMX technology, which was a women's shoe at the time, was shown to some kids at a court. And they're like, that's fire. This is great. And they moved it over to men's, and it became a huge innovative push for them and a success for them. And today we have online focus groups where companies can really pinpoint hundreds to thousands of a very specific consumer demographic all over the world to then test pictures of their products or different type of marketing campaigns. There's also things like comment crawling services. One I like is Claudia Gervasi is doing one called reputation.com, where they can scan the consumer sentiment and ratings from across the internet and synthesize it for you, and you can use that for actionable things. We study a lot of things like net promoter scores. These are like brand love studies. What are people really saying about your brand? It's this amazing time where we can just gather so much information from the consumers at the time.
So can you expand a little bit? We talked the other day about the sectors that you look at for inspiration and trends. You know, I'm a huge believer that you need to get out of your country, out of your industry. You clearly get out of your country, but what are some of the industries that influence your thinking that you like to keep tabs on?
That's a great question. Oh man, it's interesting. Outside of like just looking at the runways and the courts and digging through our own archives, I think the places I look to first and foremost, or in the industry we look to, is the music world, not the industry, music world, luxury and entertainment and travel sector, art world, DIY creatives and activists, the food industry in a big way. I mentioned beauty and gaming. So with musicians today, it's interesting because they've really morphed into being their own personal brands with unique aesthetics. It's not just, do you have a great voice? Do you have a catchy song? And it's really inspiring to see the innovative new visuals and styles that evolve and emerge out of these different genres of music. And it will always be the heartbeat of the youth. And most times when I go to a company, they're usually looking on how they can get their brand younger, how they can connect with the new generation, right? Generation Z. And, music is always going to be what represents a reflection and even an aspiration for kids. The way that music is now teased and surprise releases with limited edition bundling and merchandising. You can get the t-shirt and the bandana are just as covetable as the digital download. And just the way that they are able to stay connected to communities that they came from while still ascending into the riches is phenomenal. And even things like what Kanye has done with, orchestrating multiple creative collaborators on his album. He's able to really almost crowdsource his sound, and he's able to find new sounds. So in up and coming people who might not be known, he's able to incorporate it into his own music. And then potentially before even that original musician is able to get their own album out. So he sounds fresh. So he sounds like he's innovating and others are starting to follow him. And I grew up with rap and punk, and there's an enduring reinvention and relevance to this music. And I often say, if you're not following hip hop music at this time, or just the culture of, you're really in the dark to the global culture. When it comes to like luxury brands, travel, entertainment, they teach us a lot about storytelling and brand control. When you think about a place like Disney, the way that they're able, or even Disney or Chanel, the way that they're able to have that brand, and if it's on a box, you really know what's going to be inside that box. They've been so consistent and maniacal about focusing on the consumer perception that it's always the clearest. And that's what you need to take to your own brand. You need to be able to take those steps back and really think about every consumer touch point. brands like Chanel and Hermes were very slow to getting into e-commerce or embracing new delivery cadences. And that's because it's not because they were old, it's because they wanted to live a lot longer. They were slow because they wanted to do it the right way, the way that was entirely their own and entirely an immersive experience, so that it was seamless to what was happening in brick and mortar. And it's just an amazing time. Art world, that's more for marketing and activation, store designs. I'll look to we once looked to James Turrell's work with light to inspire a changing room of a boutique we built in Newbury Street with concepts. And then the DIY creatives and these activists are available and engaging on social media right now. They have a deep connection to their audience that we can learn so much from, but also even just how they're innovating and taking classical constructions and methods and putting a new age twist on it. There's new takes on quilting, olden day quilting now brought to a very beautiful and new world. I love what Michael Thorpe's doing. There's glass blowing innovation. There's upcycling vintage furniture with lucite parts. Tati Freitas is doing amazing stuff. It's just that they can inspire new designs of the products themselves, the activations, the installations, the retail theater, so that your stores don't look old, so that your brand doesn't look old, that you're staying up with all these amazing things. And then in the food world, I'll touch on it very quickly. It's always inspiring to see what Lay's, Oreos, Kit Kat, or even Burger King Japan is able to do with just new flavors, concepts that drive their fans to keep coming back. There's such surprising, flavor combinations or storytelling. And then personally, I was so inspired by what KFC and McDonald's have done with their own merchandising strategies. And the best example is with Travis Scott. So an amazing partnership, Travis Scott and McDonald's. They hadn't done a collaborative meal since Michael Jordan. And how they rolled out the merchandise, which is really the main focus for most consumers, this limited edition merchandise, was they just catted up some merch. I don't think they even made many physical examples. I think they did a lot of it just photoshopped. They put it on the website. They said it would take 8 to 12 weeks to ship. So it was all going to be made to order. So no inventory commitment on their part. And then they just left it online for a day. And at the end of the day, they said, we're sold out. And, and then the next day they released another whole batch. And then the next day, another whole batch. So you keep getting these people coming back being surprised, feeling like they're getting something limited edition when really it's not. They're just making everything to order. Telfar did an amazing work on that with their bag as well recently. And it's surprising people. It's making them happy that they got the product that they want, in addition to keeping the experience the same as a limited edition Travis Scott sneaker release. So just amazing. And then with gaming, there's a lot that's where a lot of the advances come from, immersive reality experiences, and then the melding of the digital and physical world, where you can have products in a game, which we once did for a soccer collaboration I did with Kith. You can have the products in the game at the same time as the real product is releasing. So maybe you didn't get it in the store, or you live somewhere where you don't have access to it, or you just don't have the money for it. You can still wear it in a way. You can still interact with it. So you don't feel bummed that you didn't have that.
Oh, this is fantastic. I really want to make a transcript of what you just said, because there's so many amazing examples to look at. And I totally love just cross-pollinating ideas and getting inspiration from different places. I literally was just looking yesterday at some new Oreos from China. They're multi-packs with different colored fillings, and 2 of the fillings were wasabi and spicy hot chicken wings for Oreos. And they're gorgeous, but they're just so cool and innovative, and it's challenging conventional notions of sweet and savory and spicy. I just saw spicy, I think, was Snickers, also in China. So it's really it's so inspiring, and it makes you feel that you can break rules. Things don't always have to be done the same way. Okay, so I just have a couple more questions for you. The next one really is about motivating cross-functional teams, getting inputs from different types of people on your own team, because we talked about the world outside of the companies you worked for, but what has been your experience in the best way to motivate teams that they often don't directly report to you, you don't give them their evaluations, but everybody needs to contribute, and they all have value. So is there anything regarding functional teams, cross-functional teams within the companies you've worked with, and also consumer co-creation, if you've had programs where you're trying to get collaborating with consumers? Either one of those or both.
Yeah, at the end of the day, what you want to provide for people at a company is an intrinsic motivator to get to that office and or sign in from your kitchen and work the long hours. You want to give them a sense of pride, that they can shake someone else's hand and say, I work for this brand. You want to be able to it can't just be money. It can't just be you have a financial obligation to be there. You really want to inspire them by the ethos and the ethics that your brand is going to be putting forth. And that needs to be clear to everyone in the company. It needs to be very, very clear the principles and values that you're going to stand for loudly and proudly. And that's important in today more than ever, where consumers, are going to look into how is this brand treating its employees? How is this brand giving back to the communities that they say they support? It's incredibly important to have that value and also have a clear understanding of the North Star, the vision, the consumer that you're trying to delight. It should be something that's easily understandable and that could be almost printed out and put on every person's desk, or it's a sticky on your computer. Everyone should really have that singular goal, so that in not making your business goals too confusing, too long-winded. It should be simple bullet points. Here's what we're all going to get after together. That first and foremost makes so much of the process easier, because we all feel great about where we work. We're motivated to go to work, and we also know what we're working towards. I think you hit the nail on the head, of course, about all functions need to work together. And especially in the footwear industry, you see very large matrix organizations. So lots and lots of people who are highly specialized in what they do, but no one person can get it all done. No one person has the expertise of all different parts. It really is the coming together of all these great minds, and that fostering of a sense of collaboration and creativity, which is just woven into these brands, and they do it exceptionally well. And so we all have to work together and be passionate. And then anytime you come to a business, anytime you're just approaching a new project or a new turnaround, I like to just focus on people, process, and product in that order. Do you have the right bright people to accomplish the functional needs of our business? Do they have that passion to be there? Are they coming in incredibly positive? Are they just a wonderful person to be around? Because we can often teach some functional skills to great, smart people. And then the next is just process. What are the dates and gates? Are they optimized? Is the timeline working for us or working us? Do we have clear roles and responsibilities that everyone's abiding to at these different gates and milestones? And then, having focused on the footwear industry and not just one single function, this has given me this understanding of how all those gears turn. And I have to say, once you get those first two things right, making great product is actually pretty easy. Because you have really smart people doing what's best. You have design working at the best of their abilities. You have the marketing team working at the best of their abilities. And everyone is also focused on the consumer. So we can all come in, bring those insights, align, and then go. Sometimes you might not agree with the decision made, but an act of maturity is just saying, you know what, we're going to align to it though, and we're going to leave this room, and we're all going to be excited and push it downstream into other partners and to accounts, and ultimately to the consumer. We're going to have the confidence together.
That's awesome. So just in closing, are there any key bits of advice for companies regarding how they can succeed in apparel and accessories or other categories? Like, what are just the key learnings maybe that are somewhat universal, that some of your guiding philosophies in terms of breaking through, doing things that are really going to resonate with consumers, create a big business? Just I don't know if there are bits of wisdom that you've accumulated that really guide you.
Yeah, I'm always surprised by how even luxury companies and so many brands have not really picked up on why the sneaker industry has been working so well and how it became this monster of a business, and how we are now living in generation sneakerhead, where every high schooler is self-identifying as a sneakerhead, no matter how many shoes they have in their closet. There's so much that can be learned from the product development side. I think a key thing is to just you need to provide design with of the problem to solve. Creatives are historically the greatest problem solvers. As long as they know specifically what they need to work on and it doesn't change too often to just frustrate them. But after you provide them this architecture of what your product range should be, target consumer, price points, let them go into the clouds to start out. Let them do what they do to find that spark. At later gates in the process, you can identify the projects and concepts that are working and the ones that might need to be pushed out to a later season to get right, and have that flexibility. Be able to say, hey, let's put this one on a different track and work on it a little more to get it right, versus just rush it on. We've got quotas to hit. And at each review gate, you can start to just sharpen the offering as you're getting closer to market and closer to the real-time trend and selling insights. Another big portion is, how can you get closer to market? How can you allot some of your products that are going to be more influenced by recent trends, and even these future factories that footwear companies have been putting out, where they can get products out in 3 days. They can hear someone say boom shakalaka on an announcement of a sports game and design the t-shirt that same day. Next day, the t-shirts are printed. Third day, it's shipped to stores overnight. And so how can you get your own processes where there's some of that wiggle room, some of that ability to just be on trend, in addition to the much slower processes that you're going to need for larger bulk pushes. Also, when it comes to being a global business, you also want to think about that capability on a hyper local level, making sure that you still have hyper local relevance to some percentage, but also a large percentage still globally aligned messaging. So someone can walk into a store in Singapore, they can walk into a store in Toronto, and still have the same understanding of what your brand is valuing, the aesthetics, everything about it. And then the next piece is just that experience is everything. Product is part of the experience, but it should be treated as if in a life cycle. You don't want to just take a bunch of products, a bunch of spaghetti, throw it against the wall and see what meatballs stick. That's not a plan. A plan is a multi-year journey. So whenever you're going to try to introduce a new big model that you want to make the coolest, greatest thing that you want on the shoulders or on the backs of every single kid across the world, you want to ensure you have a clean marketplace first. Perhaps you had oversaturated the market with inventory in the past, and you've got to get your product first off the sales racks, take it back, put it in the cooler, give that product a chance to reset, and then think about that 2 to 3 year consumer journey for your product. And that's where you start out by validating it. And validating just doesn't mean like it's just a limited edition thing or it's a high price point. You want to build up a social appraisal. So this could mean, yes, working with collaborators, where there's a collaborative version with a highly regarded partner who aligns to the message or personality you're trying to attach to your product. But don't just go to who's hot. Don't just be like, oh yeah, Virgil's cool, let's work with Virgil. It needs to be an authentic partnership. They have to stand for something that you want to stand for. They actually have to like your product or have a history with your product. Consumers can see through the BS whenever that comes. It could also be very limited distribution. So making sure that your product is only able to be found in these highly curated stores where you're not the most expensive brand. You never want to be the most expensive brand in the store. You want to have these other more expensive brands around it that are helping elevating your brand. And often these types of retailers will do their own marketing, have their own consumers that they're reaching very closely. This is the time when you're just trying to spark consumer awareness. And you want to, in part, there's a lot of science to this, in that you want to be able to gauge what the consumer demand is and underserve it. This is, economics 101. You want your products to fly off the shelves. You want those consumers who got the product to feel special. And you want those who missed out on it to be intrigued and be looking out for it again. Once you're able to really highly, and we've done this at these companies, is highly underserve the market to make sure that these are selling out in an hour, a day, a weekend. Next, you can start to build consumer engagement with greater marketing investment. You can intersect at the cultural movements or moments that matter to your target consumer and start to expand your distribution, but still keeping it segmented, keeping it targeted and focused. You want to give this product a personality that your target consumer is going to respond to. It shouldn't be that this is going to be everything to everyone. You want to obsess the audience. And this is learnings that any CPG company should be doing. It shouldn't just be commoditized products. And once you've tested and validated and you can control the units that you're putting out each season, you're in a position of power. You can find the green shoots where you had the highest sell-through, start to service them better, build those relationships with those accounts. And as much as you can, please, companies, please, don't be greedy. Don't oversaturate the market. When you've got a hit, when you've got a winner, don't blow it out. You don't want to be on the sales rack. It's all about clean inventory, full price sells. You always want there to be a sense of needing more. And we plan for all of this. As much as I'm following what the new Young Thug album is going to be that's dropping, I'm deep in Excel work. We're able to deep dive into large swaths of selling data to pull out these insights that are going to help us be as fine-tuned as possible to never go over, never be too overdone. And the last thing I have to say is don't say that you're going to build an icon. Brands do not create icons. When it's done right, when a company is able to plan for this product and strategically deliver it to culture, the hope is that the youths of that time are maybe just now learning about it, that they're going to recognize it from all that prep work that you did. They're going to adopt it, and they're going to tell you with their buying, with their commentary, they're going to hand you back, this is an icon that I want to use for years to come. And then it is on you to really respect that they believe it's an icon and treat it with the regard and think that I want to be around in the next 100 years. So what are the steps we need to take today?
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing so many great, inspiring insights. Your enthusiasm is totally contagious. And you're really, to me, a role model for how important it is for someone to love what they do and to be, motivated to learn everything that they can and how much there is to learn even about it. You can spend so much time in one industry, but there's product design, there's distribution, there's logistics, there's creating culture, there's marketing, and all of this is so dynamic. It's constantly changing because there are constantly new ways to do it, and you're dealing with doing it globally, which is also, adding a lot of complexity. So, I think this is very, very motivating. And again, to me, you're the epitome of passion, and it's such a fun category that everybody can relate to. So thank you so much for your time. This was really terrific.
Thank you.
Great. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.